Okay. Now I'm trying to do way too many things on this poor little surface. Okay, so basically with Business Ops, you can go here to add external tools, and it's got all the different tools that you might want. So it's got like ALM Toolkit that we'll be taking a look at. It's got the Tabulator 2 and 3. It's got Dax Studio, Metadata Translator, and it's got some other things as well that I haven't really messed around with. But yeah, it's got them all here. So Power BI Helper. I haven't messed around with hardly any of these. So Steve Campbell's got some cool stuff. Oh, David Everville's got some kind of Python thing. So anyway, this is what you want to get. You want to get this. You basically just click on it, and it's installed, you know, within, I mean, literally sub-seconds. Because really what it's doing is when you install Business Ops, it actually installs all the tools, okay? And they're sitting in the Business Ops directory. So all this has to do is copy a JSON file out into the right directory for Power BI, and then you got the access to that external tool. So it's very cool, recommended. I didn't realize there were so many. But anyway, I've already done all that. So let's see here what we're going to take a look at. We're going to take a look at probably Tabular Editor first. So when you get external tools installed, you'll get a external tools ribbon. I want this one. You get this in the ribbon right here, external tools. And so as you can see, I've got some external tools set up here. Now what we're seeing here is this is actually from Power BI Cookbook, Chapter 6. It's calculation groups. It's the last recipe in that chapter. So actually, we're basically going to go through that recipe in that chapter, which is leveraging calculation groups, and it creates your time intelligence, date intelligence functions. So I'm going to leave out all the boring stuff of actually sucking in data from the VentureWorks database and all of that. But what you can do then is you can just go and click on, I'm going to use the free version because I think my free trial of Tabulator 3 expired. And I have a review on Tabulator 3 if you want to read it. It's out on the community site.
Summary was it sucks, right? It's not worth it.
No, I mean, see, it came out the wrong way. I mean, it's really cool that they put a ton of effort into it, and it's very much cleaned up. It's a nicer interface. Got a lot of bells and whistles and stuff like that. I couldn't find anything that I would pay $20 a month or whatever it is or $10 a month or something to use it for. But again, if you can get your company to pay for it, you know, companies pay for software all the time.
Next week मेरा Spanish unit test है.
Sorry, what?
पढ़ाई कर रही थी. मैंने पहले तो इंग्लिश का कर रही थी, कल नैरेटिव भी हुआ.
I didn't quite make that out.
It might have been
I don't think she was.
Maybe not.
She was talking. I think she was in the middle of a conversation and wasn't muted.
Okay, no big deal. So yeah, I couldn't find anything that I would pay for, but that doesn't mean that there aren't some cool things in it. All right, so basically this is Tabular Editor. All right, so it basically gives you your model. Over here, you've got your data sources, your relationships, your tables are all listed here. So here's my internet sales table, order dates, calculations, time intelligence group, date intelligence group, which these are actually my calculation groups that I created. So calculation group essentially looks like this. So what you do is you use selected measure, and then you can use that in so calculate selected measure, dates year to date, order dates date, right? That's your kind of your standard year to date time intelligence way of doing it, right? The interesting thing in working with Brett Powell on this is I found someone that hates the time intelligence functions as much as I do. So we have in the book, it actually covers how to create all of these different time intelligence measures. And then it also does it with the non-time intelligence way. So you can do it either way, basically, is the bottom line.
So is this a thing you needed to do in Tabular Editor, or you're just showing us this through Tabular?
No, you got to do this. Well, you don't have to do it in Tabular Editor. You could do it in Visual Studio, or you could do it, but you can't do it in Power BI Desktop. There are other ways of doing it. But the way you do it is you just basically say like model and then new calculation group. And I'll call it new calculation group. And then you right click and say create new calculation item. And then you can do things like new calculation item. Now I forgot how to do this. So essentially, I've got, I can create a sum. I can create a. Let me copy this. And create an average. And maybe a max. Right. And so then once you're done with this, I think you do file save. So one or more calculation groups need to be manually refreshed. Refresh now. And there's my new calculation group. When you have it, the way this works is you get this name thing, right? So what this matrix is set up for on this page is that, as you can see, I've got my calendar year and my English month name is sitting over here. I've got my values of internet sales and orders, which are two measures. But internet sales is just the sum of the internet sales, and orders is just the count rows of the internet sales. This name here actually comes from the data intelligence calculation group. So it's this guy right here. And what it does is, because I've got current, year to date, month to date, quarter to date, previous year to date, and year over year all defined, then it goes ahead and creates all of those right in the matrix for me. It's kind of a way to. And then if I have, like, let's say I have internet sales, maybe I have reseller sales. Well, if I replace internet sales in here with reseller sales, for example, then all of these calculations still come out. So instead of having to write, the same measure over and over and over and over again for every measure, then you can just write it once in calculation groups and away you go. Does that make sense in terms of why it's cool?
Is there any risk of like doing this backdoor stuff and storing stuff in the PBIX behind the scenes, like that Microsoft releases the November version of Power BI and shuts something down? Or do they support this concept of Tabular Editor doing stuff? And I know they support the third-party tool stuff, but I'm just thinking from a commercial perspective, if we started leveraging something like this, Microsoft has a stance on it. So
I mean, these are officially supported features in
I guess that's what I'm getting at.
in SAS Tabular, right? Okay. So Microsoft comes out and releases these features, but the UI for the Power BI desktop doesn't necessarily catch up there. So, but you can use data tools from Microsoft. You can use Visual Studio. You can use Tabular Editor. You can use. There's multiple different pathways to get access to use that feature. And it's just, this is just one. This is the easiest way, probably, especially if you're not real familiar with Visual Studio or SQL data tools and that sort of thing. The other thing that I was messing around with Tabular Editor is you can do translations. Right? So I can say new translation, and you can pick, I don't know, maybe which one haven't I messed around with? We'll do finish. I've never done finish. But anyway, so it adds, it adds a translation language. And then when you actually go to something like here, you can actually take data intelligence group. I can actually, or maybe something better, internet sales. I can go to, say, order quantity. I can give it, okay, this is order quantity. And in finish, I have no idea what it is, right? But I can go out to Bing, and I'll say translate English to Finnish. This is how I did it for my first article, and my mouse is dead. Order quantity. And the finish is that. So now when I actually bring it up, if I could actually view it in Finnish, I've only got German installed in my browser in that right now. But if you actually view it in Finnish, then that, when you bring up the data model, then order quantity would appear as, I am not even going to try to pronounce that. Any takers on pronouncing that? I'll show a much easier way of doing this with the metadata translator. You want to see that next? That pretty much covers most of the stuff that I do with Tabular Editor. There's a bunch of other things you can, they've got a bunch of scripts that you can download that you can plug in. Like there's one for like the Vertipack Analyzer to add all the Vertipack Analyzer information into your model essentially and be able to view it. There's a ton of stuff, but these are the two things that I found Tabular Editor useful for primarily. Does anybody else have any experience with Tabular Editor or done anything interesting with it?
I haven't
Take that
done
in.
anything with it, but we have a contractor who is actually building this exact scenario for us in Tabular Editor.
I have
So
not
this
played
is
around with
great
best.
to see.
Yeah, it's a nifty tool. You can do a lot of cool stuff with it. I've not really messed around with Best Practice Analyzer. I was planning on doing that before this meeting showed up, but I always run out of time. So I've never not even messed with this. I have no idea if it even works or how to do it.
Bottom it says you don't have any violations.
0 objects in violation of 0 best practice. Man, my models are awesome. It's probably because I don't have any rules installed. I probably have to do something with the rules. Rules in current model. I don't know. I should have messed with it before I came here, but I ran out of time. Maybe next time. Probably something like that. Anyway. All right. So that's Tabular Editor. Those are the things I usually do with it. Let's go ahead and do a Metadata Translator. So let's do, yep, we'll work off the same model. So Metadata Translator is this tool. So as you can see, it's brought in all of the object types, the captions, the descriptions, all of these things for my model, right? For every table, every column, measure, everything that's in there. Hierarchies, got hierarchies in there. There's my measures and all that sort of stuff. So it's brought in, it's reading the entire model essentially. Now, the important thing about Metadata Translator is this settings right here. So what you have to do is you actually have to get these settings correct, which you may find surprising, but yes, you do. Because if you don't, it'll just exit on you and not give you any indication of why it exited. So if I go into there's my Greg Deckler Translator service. So what you do to create, what you would do is you say create a resource. You would search for translator in Azure, pick translator, say create, and basically fill out all the pertinent information. You create yourself a translator service, tag it with the free version of the translator service, which gets you several tens of thousands of free translations. But I already created one, so I'm not going to create another one. I got this one right here. The interesting thing is when you open this up, you do not want this subscription ID when it's asking for a key, and you don't want the actual location. I forget how I got there, but you don't want to go that way. It's in my blog article, part 4. What you want to do is you want to click on Manage Keys and then get this key right here and get this location right here. And that's what you're going to plug into Metadata Translator. If you plug the wrong things in for the subscription key and the translator location, it just blindly exits on you and doesn't tell you why.
It's very similar to like the cognitive services.
Yeah, you don't want to change this. This is just your basically link to the API translation point for the translator. But this is really cool. Let me maximize this. Oh, look, it found my Finnish. It already found that I have Finnish in there. But I can pick other languages. So they've got only a couple languages that you can choose from. It's not very many. Yeah. So anyway, I can pick these. Like I want Vietnamese. Welsh is always good. We'll do Thai. And we'll do, that's too close to Finnish. We'll do, yeah, Kurdish. What the heck? All right. So basically, I've got my languages. Here they are. And I hit translate. And it's translated. So there's all the translations. Boom. Bingo, bango, bongo. Hit apply. We'll go back to Tabular Editor. There's all my translations. I go into internet sales and I go to my order quantity table. There's all the translations. So it did all the hard work for me. I don't have to go to Bing and look up every translation and copy and paste it back or any of that sort of thing. So once I got this to work, it was like, wow, this is the way to do it. Now, what this won't give you in terms of translating, I think you had mentioned, Jason, translating axis names and titles and the actual data in there, if you have month names and things like that. So I have that blog series, parts 1, 2, and 3 cover some of that. Although part 3, I think the answer is use the translation in your browser. Because the minute that you switch, like I switched from like English to German, I mean, all the axis titles changed, everything changed, even the data model and a non-localized data model, even the columns and everything changed to German. Now, again, to your point, in the construction business, it may not translate 100%, but the other way of doing it is a real pain. Like you'll see how I did it in part 3, and I can't imagine doing that for an entire complex data model. It'd be impossible. So, because basically you're creating like an extra column for every an extra column in your table for like October to translate it to each language that you want. Then you have to pick the right one in a measure. It's awful. You don't want to do it that way. But yeah,
You said axes won't translate. What else did you say?
Titles, legends, things like that. I don't know. I can tell you. Well, actually, I'll go. So this is part 4, where I talk about my struggles and how much of a bonehead I am for doing it wrong. But this covers the metadata translator. And then part 3, there should be a link to part 3 somewhere in here. So the easy way, so let's see, so I have a custom legend, custom title, custom axis. I've even got, dates here or my month names here. I flip it to German and it goes to, everything changes to German. Yeah, even my fields pane, all of the fields and everything changed to German. And this is without localization. I didn't go in and create a German like we did in Metadata Translator. I didn't do any of that. It just does it automatically when you switch to German in the browser. So then I have the hard way, right? Which is you create lots of measures and tables and all kinds of other hoops that you jump through, and you don't want to do that way, bottom line. And then part 2, I forget what part 2 was about. Oh, that's when I actually got the translation to work. Yeah, I got the U.S. culture. There's a hidden function. I don't know if anybody's aware of it. It's called user culture. It actually doesn't resolve in IntelliSense. So you have to type it all in, and then it tells you you're wrong and puts a little squiggly line under it. But it actually works. It doesn't actually. If you hit enter on that formula, it actually will return, and it returns your language culture. Which is, if you notice, when we were adding the language cultures, the translations in Metadata Translator, this is what it was adding essentially. So I tried true name, but that's not a hidden Dax function. So does anybody get that reference? True name? Okay. It's an old hidden DOS function that was never documented.
So I got a question on this. So basically the ultimate at the end, this is just using the browser culture, picking it up from there and auto applying if it matches. Is that right?
Yes. Yep. So it's picking up your browser culture. And then if it matches, then that's what you're going to see that field as.
There'd be a path with this technique to be able to have it driven out of like a Power BI parameter or something, like when they deployed the file and because some companies mandate the language be in English, even though you're in France. So the user may have French for their culture, but the business terminology needs to be English or whatever. Like, would there be a way to, in this path, to hook into like a parameter that got set or something, and then we could force it?
My understanding of the data model culture is set when you create the data model. So when you create the data model, then the culture is set for that data model and cannot be changed. So the only way that for you to get different things or to have the translations and to use the user culture.
Well, we would have the translations. It would all be predefined for the countries we know we're supporting. But could we then force a certain culture through a configuration as opposed to an end user decision or an end user browser setting?
In theory.
Okay.
Get a little tricky. I don't have to think about that one.
Like I was just looking at that, what you were showing there, the user culture, like, is there a way to force that culture based on,
No.
thinking of a parameter or something.
No, you're not going to be able to override the user culture. I have to think about that one.
Or can you set your preferred culture in the browser? We always use the browser, the culture you want, right?
Well, I think what he's asking is like, okay, somebody in France opens up the Power BI desktop file or the web page, and they want to, and you want to force them to view it in English, even though their user culture on their machine is set to it is set to French or France. I don't think there's a way to do that.
Okay.
I mean, if you don't have any I'd have to test it, and that stuff's tricky to test too because here's why this is tricky to test. So my keyboard keeps switching to Spanish. I installed the Spanish language because I was going to mess around with the localization and stuff, and now I can't get every once in a while my keyboard just switches to Spanish, and then I try to type a ampersand in or something, and it comes out a different character. So.
Is there like a hotkey in Windows that like auto switches
Oh,
those?
shit.
I must be hitting something, but yeah, every once in a while it switches to Spanish and I don't like it. So I'll have to spin up a VM maybe with French culture and then see what I could do, but I probably have to anyway.
Well, I need to go through and play around.
Part 5. We'll do that on part 5 of the blog series. So that's Metadata Translator. Any questions on that one? Can save a ton of work in doing this localization stuff. All right, let's do ALM next. Okay, so for this one, what I did is I have I've got access to a premium instance. So this is the MVP's instance, our playground basically, that Chuck Sterling gave us access to. So I have this report published out there, which is the report from the Learn Power BI second edition, which looks very much like the first edition, but the instructions are all different. What I did was I downloaded that to my local machine. So I just downloaded PBX right from there. So this is an exact copy of that published report in the service and data set. So what I can do from here is I can launch the ALM toolkit. And so what it's going to do is going to say Power BI desktop, okay, that's what I'm launching this from. And my target is this data set that's up there in the cloud, in the premium. You need premium for this because it needs the XMLA endpoint for this to work. So I'm going to compare my local data set and report to the one that's sitting up there in my premium instance of Azure. Here's my workspace and now it's going to ask me for my credentials. So I got that right. Must have. And the one thing I did was I added a measure in the local machine. So after I downloaded it, I added one measure, which is, you can see how this very complex measure that I created. Measure equals 1. That's what I added. So now when I open this up, it goes through and it says, oh, look, there's this measure here called measure. and it doesn't exist in your target data set. And I'm suggesting that you create it. So what you do then is this is the compare function, right? So now I can hit validate. It says, okay, there's your measures, create measure, KPI measure. Say, okay, I think this is right. I did this correctly. Let me go through it again. Compare, yes. Okay, select actions. This thing is weird. I keep on having to relearn how to do this. Create all objects missing in target. Okay, yeah, I got to select that. Then I hit validate. Okay. And then I hit update, I think. You sure you want to update the target? Yes. Right, close. Yes, refresh the comparison. I can't find my measure. Measure. There's measure. So now if I go back out to the service, and let's say I take this data set that's behind this guy, and I say to create a new report. In theory, I remember where I created that thing in. Where did I create it? It's in calculations, measure, and it's not there. Okay. This worked the last time. It is. Just had to refresh. There's my measure. So where this comes in, so why do you want this, right? The reason you want this is especially in the case of incremental refresh. And this is why incremental refresh is really only partially good in a pro setting because you don't have access to the XMLA endpoint. When you publish a data set and turn on incremental refresh, you can't download the PBX any longer. And if you republish it, you overwrite all the partitions that were created by incremental refresh. You're basically blowing away your incremental refresh and you're starting over from scratch. So with this is a way for you to change your data model, add measures, change calculations, add tables, do whatever, and then only publish out the changes to your data set in the service, and you don't blow away all your incremental refresh data partitions. Does that make sense? You kind of have to know how incremental refresh works for that to make sense, but that's how it works.
Is diffing like everything that's in the PBIX, or just certain things like measures and calculated fields, like your language translations? Would those show up as differences now?
Let's see. I think it's all your tables, all of your measures, all of your relationships. In theory, right? Good question. I don't know. I'd have to download this report again, I guess, and then take a look at it to see if if it caught all of. In theory, I would assume yes. That if there was any change that was going on with a column or anything, that it should catch it. Although let's see here. Create all objects missing in target. Update all objects with different definitions. So probably if I downloaded it right now, I don't see anything there. Update all objects. This thing is really weird. I gotta validate it before the update becomes. Now I can update it. Sure. I can always blow this report away. All right, let's go try it then. I guess the only thing to do is to download this thing from the service. And see if it's got my updated translations. Which, oh no, was I doing that on this one? Wait. I think I was doing it on this one. I mean, look. I was doing wrong one. We can try it on the other one and see if it catches it. Metadata Translator. All right, what language do you want? Yeah, let's do German. Did it add it? Yes, German. Translate. It's on my local copy, apply. Prove that it's there. My poor little surface is working overtime. Oh yeah, they're definitely there. Yep, German, datum. That is the one German word I know now. After doing all this translation stuff, I know datum means date. Okay, all right, so now they're there. I can close this. I can then run my compare. So update all objects with different definitions. And I want to do compare. Yes, that's what I want. Same definition. Interesting. Maybe it doesn't capture the metadata. Kind of surprised at that. Let's try it anyway. Pose. Yes. All right, let's go back out to the service. We'll go back to our report, which is this guy. We will download it again, and hopefully it doesn't take 6 hours. Oh, fail. Try it again. Maybe I didn't let it load. No, it just doesn't like it. Okay, good. Yep. Well, download the PBX. Nope. Ask me what's going on. I can tell you though is don't post this to the forums because nobody can answer it other than Microsoft. Oh well. Well, I will get this working and then report back. I don't know. Doesn't like the report now. At least not because of Tabular, not ALM Toolkit. So that's ALM Toolkit. That's the use case for at least what I've seen. It is kind of useful if you have different versions of you can actually compare two local PBX files. When you do the comparison, it's got a bunch of different options. You can point it to your, obviously your desktop or to some PBX file that you have sitting there running. So even without premium, it's still useful to do comparison. Yeah. Yep. This one is free. I don't know if they have a paid version of this. All right, so then the last one is Dax Studio. And I don't really have a lot on Dax Studio because they came out with the performance analyzer pane. So a lot of stuff I used to use Dax Studio for kind of went away.
Hi, Greg.
Yes.
This is Shell. The cultures will be picked if you will set it from the options while comparison.
Sorry, what was that?
So if you would want to compare the model for the culture change, then you have a setting in the options, and you would be able to tick that setting to have that included in the comparison.
All right, let's try it. I literally admit I have never opened the options pane.
Right, yeah, usually we hardly deal with the culture.
Oh yeah, look at that. Here's a checkbox. Include perspectives, include culture, include notes. Interesting. Well, let's try. Let's do compare. It's gonna make it think. Comparison invalidated. Okay, we'll rerun it then. Okay. You can actually save these comparisons out too. It's kind of interesting. Okay, and include cultures for culture updates, merge translations, not replace. Try it again and compare. Did it already publish them out or something? Keeps saying same definition.
You did publish it, didn't you?
Oh, there we go. Create culture DE, update culture English. Okay, there we go. That's right. I was keep thinking it's the other one with the Finnish cultures and all that. Yeah, messed around because we only changed it on like, there it is, different definition right there. All we did was add the culture. We didn't actually. Yeah, there it is, missing in target. So then that means that if this is the right one, right, guys? Yes. So if I go into Tabular Editor, I just want to prove this to myself. Translations, tables, calendar, date, translated names. There's datum and date. Okay, so do we have to add the culture first before it recognizes that the translations occurred? So it has to add this so it doesn't know that. Where's my date table? Calendar date. Calendar, here it is, calendar. Doesn't even have my date table anywhere. Why am I missing this, guys? So it's got my relationship, my table, but shouldn't I see my date column in here somewhere?
Yeah.
Are we missing another option? It's got my measures. Okay, well, fine. If it doesn't want to get my columns, then let's find a measure. Utilization. Okay, got a translation on it. Are we in the right one? Learn Power BI, second edition, yes. Then this is also should be the Learn Power BI one, which is, yes, got my utilization stuff in here. So that is definitely it. Well, let's go ahead and update objects, different definitions, validate. Yep, it's going to do that. Go for it. Okay. Yep, refresh it. Include cultures. Yeah, it still thinks they're the same. Doesn't seem to be catching the fact that there's translations. Maybe I'm running an old version. I don't know. 5.0.23. All right, I'll keep playing with it. Report back. Dax Studio. Again, this is getting kind of familiar. We've got all of our tables and columns and everything like that here. The cool thing, if I can find it, because I don't get into this enough. So it's cool. One click. So in Tabular Editor now, in the Tabular Editor 3 version, they've got it down to like one click now. Before you used to have to run an advanced script. So you have to download the VertiPack script from the Tabular Editor website or wherever, load it up and run it in Tabular Editor 2. But this is cool. This has all your tables, the cardinality, the table size, column sizes, how much data it's taking up. So for all of your tables, for all your columns, it has all this information. This can be really, really helpful if like you find that your data model is like blowing up in size and you're trying to see where you can save space. You know, go into here and find out what columns have a really high cardinality, because those are not going to compress very well in the VertiPack engine, and see if you can eliminate them. As you can tell, I've not following best practices. I have the auto date time stuff set on, and that stuff sucks as far as cardinality and stuff. It doesn't compress. And this is why turning off the auto date time is always a good idea, generally, especially if you have these, these dates that they might find in your model, which go like sometimes a lot of ERP systems or whatever, like use like a date like 1/1/2999 as, the end date for people, right? Well, guess what? When the auto date time stuff is kicked in, it's gonna create a date time column in table that has every date from normal until 2999, and then you're gonna have a huge problem on your hands as far as your data model size. So this is really good information to have if you're having problems with a data model and you're trying to figure out how to optimize it, if you will. So I use this for the VertiPack stuff. Again, a lot of the stuff I used to do with this, the performance analyzer does for me. Although I think I can, like even with the performance analyzer, wrong thing, Greg. Go to the executive summary, turn on performance analyzer, start recording, refresh the visuals. So I can take something like this, copy my Dax query. I think I can paste it in here somewhere. So there's the actual Dax query that's running behind the scenes that gets created. I can tell you I did not code this. This is auto-generated from, let's see, percent utilization by target. That's percent utilization by month. That's this guy right here. And so the actual target utilization value must be hiding that column somewhere. There it is. Yeah, target utilization value. Okay, so it's just, yeah. Anyway, so it's just a KPI visual, essentially is what it's doing. But this is the actual code that gets generated by Dax when it makes a query back to the data store. You can actually learn a lot of good Dax by like studying this stuff and seeing how it does it, because they're going to do it the most optimal way, or try to do it the most optimal way. Let's see if I run it. So there it came back with information by query history. But there's a way to get like query plan. There's a way to get really detailed information on this thing. Try running it again. There we go, query plan. There you go. If you really want to know what's going on, there you go. You can look through all of that. Again, the stuff that I usually use it for, I can't look through all of this. I don't know how to interpret it all. I haven't done the research to know how to interpret it all. But there's more information on here in terms of what's going on, what records are being pulled back at each step, etc. So there's a logical query plan and a line query plan. So yeah. I don't know how useful it is, but you can do it. Does anybody have experience with Dax Studio that does stuff that I'm not showing here? I know there's got the SQL profiler. I haven't really done much of the benchmark stuff yet. This must be like going through and running it 5 times and then telling you how long it's going to take. Which of course, all my code is so efficient, so it's coming back in milliseconds. So that's a joke. I write some inefficient DAX code a lot of times. Total duration, 250. I'm assuming that's milliseconds. They don't tell you. I don't think it came back in 253 seconds. We weren't sitting here waiting for 4 minutes, right? Not crazy. Oh, it gives you a standard deviation of this. So yeah, if you really want to understand what's going on in your DAX and really care about performance tuning and stuff, Dax Studio is the way to go. Again, it used to be that this was the only way. All that stuff that was in Performance Analyzer, Dax Studio was the only way to get that. But now they added Performance Analyzer, it's not as useful, I don't think. That was it. The external tools, except for the last one. I promised that there was a mystery tool. So the mystery tool is, this is the joke, right? Is that I've published I've literally published hundreds of quick measures out in the quick measure gallery. But never once has Microsoft put one of my quick measures into Power BI. But I'm not bitter, a little bitter. But anyway, so I'm creating my own external tool for Power BI called Microsoft Hates Greg's Quick Measures. So it's going to show up here. Microsoft Hates Greg's Quick Measures. I advertise my books.
We have memos about it.
This literally does nothing right now. Like this is out pre-alpha, okay, guys. But you know, the one thing you can do is you can buy my book from there. You know, one of the books I've published, so it does that. But other than that, this is right here. I mean, I have like my different unit converter measures, my text to table. I'm just, you know, all of the hundreds of measures I've put out in the quick measure gallery are eventually going to wind up here. This is actually going to, this columns is actually going to be this information right here. I have to get this information over to this panel, which that's the next step in the development process. It's harder than you think if you've never done a WPF application. And I'm just learning how to do one. But I have learned how to connect to the data source and grab all of my model information and all of that sort of stuff. So anyway, eventually there will be this panel right here will be replaced with, you pick a quick measure, you pick a column, just like the quick measure interface in Power BI, it's going to have drop downs for, I want the max of this, I want this or that, and it'll generate the actual DAX code, and then you hit apply, and it'll actually create the measure in the model without hopefully screwing up your data model. So anyway, that was it. I've been spending forever doing this thing, and it's, you know, this is how far I am. So give me a couple months, and we'll get it out there. Any suggestions for the icon I should use for it, to just use my profile pic? I don't know. All right. What else is it? That's all the prepared material that I have. So that was kind of do we want to explore any other of the external tools? We can use Business Ops to install them. I don't know. I'm open for anything. Or does everybody just like, nope, we've had enough. Let's go drink.
Has anybody used any of the new features from the September release?
Not. That's right.
There's some quick insight thing that piqued my interest, but I haven't done anything with it.
It's going to be over here. I looked at it briefly, but you know, you're right. Normally we cover like what's new with Power BI. Wrong blog. That's right. They did some really crazy things with buttons.
Insights preview was the one that
Yeah.
caught my interest.
Insights preview. Where did you see that?
It was up top. It looks like they built in some of the anomaly detection stuff, which I think is like a configuration option on some chart types now. But
When you open it, looks like the quick insight stuff that runs in the service. Is what it looks like. All right. Well, they say when you open what version am I on? This thing open constantly, so sometimes it doesn't update. Diagnostics. Nope, I'm on September. Do I have to turn on preview features? No. It said when I open a report, it's supposed to do it for me,
or
right?
is it a service thing? Maybe it's only a service thing.
Well, it's always had quick insights in the service. Maybe there's just something interesting about my reports. Reports in premium and premium per user workspaces. Seems like quick insights to me. All right, well, it's in premium, right? So we can go to, nope, wrong one. This one. Get insights. Bloop. We didn't find any insights. Okay, my report's boring, apparently. Just bad. So I have, what other reports do I have in here? Let's try AdventureWorks. AdventureWorks test. Okay, that's a really amazing report, Greg. Let's try something. Nope. They're not gonna let me get insights on this one. Oh no, they do. Okay, this must not be a premium workspace. Yeah, it's not. Surely something in a regression report is going to be interesting. Oh, it didn't immediately come back and say you suck and your data is boring. This is actually a couple years ago. This was from when I was messing around with the auto ML stuff. Am I just dreaming things, or the quick insights? Do you remember? Does everyone remember quick insights? You publish the data set, you say get quick insights, and it would like. So is this more from a report perspective, like the information that's showing up in the report versus the stuff that's showing up in your data set? You used to get some really poor. Well, I'm not going to say poor. There was a lot of noise in the.
Wasn't it like you hover over a visual?
Quick
and it would
insights.
Say that it went up. They would show you like a distribution of change over time or something, and what contributed to something.
Yeah, maybe.
I think it was always just like.
Quick insights would always be like, hey, there's a correlation between month name and month number. Well, yes, it's unhelpful. It's still in preview. All right, what else can we break? Any other features that look interesting? We can make different kinds of shapes. I don't do much with waterfall charts. Ooh, we got a new Zur function parameter. This is interesting. So they finally made it so that you can actually you can use aggregates when you do, like, remember how it used to be less, greater than max of something, and it'd be like, oh, you can't use max because it's a true false expression, blah, blah, blah. So now you can actually do that. I never understood why they had that restriction. I saw this, Jason, and I haven't had a chance to digest it, but it's something around formatting for the locale. It's for date time. So maybe you could actually, so there you go. So at least for dates, you could actually force it to be a certain user culture, because they added the language culture for the format parameter.
But this is basically forcing it to that.
This would be forcing it to, like, if you were on a French, language culture or an English language culture, this would force the date to be in Great Britain. So at least you can do it for dates.
Yeah.
But not for anything else that I'm aware of. Connector, bunch of connector updates. There you go. New version of Power BI Report Builder. Anybody else seen anything interesting that they'd like to look at? All right, anybody on the phone? How many people do we have on the phone anyway? You. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Anybody from overseas? Anyone awake?
Yeah.
Where are you from?
Oddly enough, Sweden at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Very
so-
cool. Well, it's happy to
Quite
have
late.
you on board. It's getting to be about 7 p.m., but I'm sure it's much later over there.
At 1 a.m. What am I doing up?
I was
Yeah.
gonna say.
Yeah.
Well, unless somebody else has something else they want to cover, different external tool, we can call it a night. We'll let the guys in Sweden go to bed. We can go down and have a beverage.
Thank you. Very interesting session.
All right. You guys have a good evening, everyone. That's not in the US. And if you're in the US, you can still have a good evening. So,
Thanks.
Thanks,
Greg.
everybody.
all right. All right. See you guys.
Bye.
Recording.